As My Heart Gives Out by Kira 18 on AO3. Chapter 3. To Rest. The world felt heavy. That was the only word that came to mind when he tried to describe it. Heavy and warm, like the weight of a blanket draped over him, soft and secure. It brought out from within him an emotion he scarcely had the fortune to feel, a safety he rarely possessed. The first prominent thought in his addled mind was that he was dead, because more shocking than the safety net he felt was something far more disturbing. A haze warped his vision, making him feel dizzy from the accosting lights which for the past 4 years had been completely absent. Lost within the darkness he dwelled in every day, the colors blurred and morphed, a vivid painting that fluttered with the flicker of his eyelashes, each time appearing brighter and livelier. Tears welled up in his emerald eyes as he, for the first time in years, saw the world. Blinking rapidly, he willed his vision to clear, for this beautiful, mesmerizing world to remain, for it not to disappear like the smoking whiffs of a dying fire. To his added surprise, it didn't. Instead, it settled, bit by bit, twisting into a fully formed image of the world. Yellow was the first thing he saw. So much yellow it would have made his eyes hurt, if he wasn't so entranced by its brightness. His breath hitched in his throat as he realized just where he was. The bright, smiling face of the number one hero looked down on him all around, smiling brightly and gradually, as he posed in various forms and postures. His childhood room felt foreign, yet all too familiar. His all-night bed sheets crinkled beneath his hands as he threaded his fingers through them, squeezing trembling limbs as if to see if it was all real. He wondered if it was all a dream, a nightmare perhaps, meant to taunt him with everything he could never have. Straightening from his lax position against the bedpost, he let his feet fall onto the soft, carpeted floor, curls curling as they made contact. Was this really real? Looking around, he froze as he came face to face with a perfect replica of himself. He would call it his reflection if it wasn't so foreign, so unfamiliar. The scars he knew for sure adorned his body were suspiciously absent. His hair was cut shorter than he had it in years. Curly green locks framed his face perfectly. His 10-year-old face, that is, because despite not having seen himself in years, he knew for sure that he'd grown up and matured over the last 4 years. Delicate, unmarred fingers rose to trace the unblemished skin around his eyes, finding it almost wrong for it to be so smooth and soft to the touch. Izuku. A voice called, startling him out of his superior. Izuku, are you ready, sweetheart? It was her. Her voice. A voice he'd cried himself to sleep trying to remember, trying to keep it alive and vivid in his memories. What was this? Was this heaven? Was he dead? Was this... And he couldn't dare to believe it. Real. Mom! His voice cracked as he called out, squeezing his eyes shut as if to ward off the chance that this was all a fragment of his imagination. Honey, what's taking you so long? Come on down now, we're gonna be too late. His legs moved both urgently and hesitantly, painfully so. It was as if his mind and body were fighting against two prominent impulses, the need to run towards her, to sprint into his arms and bury himself there, and the devastating urge to run as far away as possible, hide from the all too weird likelihood that this was all in his head, an illusion, a dream fabricated by his all too broken mind. I'm coming. His feet moved for him, having decided before he could cower away, moving down the stairs, practically skipping the last few steps as he rushed towards the sound. Finally! There she was, more beautiful than his feeble memory could recall, standing there as if no time had passed. And maybe, in this world, it hadn't. All set? Mom. His body moved before he could stop himself, rushing towards her, wrapping his small arms around her waist. He knew he was squeezing a little too hard, knew that he was holding on too tight. However, he couldn't get himself to care, because here she was, alive and safe, standing right in front of him. It was everything he ever wished for. "Oh, sweetie, is everything okay?" Her voice was low and warm as she spoke, her arms squeezing his back just as tight, not even moving to push him away, as if she knew just how much he needed the contact. "Yeah," he whispered, voice breaking once more as tears welled up in his eyes. "Everything is perfect." They stayed there for what could have been an eternity, but would never feel like enough. "Let's go, honey. Like I told you before, some ice cream will surely make you feel better." Sinking, that's what it felt like his heart dropping low into his stomach, breaking the haze, dreamlike atmosphere around them. "Ice cream?" he asked, voice barely masking the rising dread he felt welding up inside of him. "Yes, just picture all the flavors you could get. Although I'm sure you're gonna pick the All Might themed one again." She laughed, her voice sounding somewhat akin to liquid joy, melting into the air and brightening it. "You know there are other heroes out there. Maybe you could get the—" She rambled on, a trait he knew for sure he got from her, although he couldn't get himself to focus on her words. His mind felt muddled again, distant. "Can't we stay here?" His words broke her trade, making her stop just as she was slipping onto her last shoe. "Oh, sweetheart." And her loving green eyes, filled with so much understanding, it hurt him. She looked at him like she knows what he's afraid of, what he wants to prevent. She knows, and she can't, won't stop it. Her gaze is painfully apologetic, although she makes no move to speak. Instead, she wordlessly holds out her hand. Izuku is helpless against her silent request, knowing that he could never deny her anything. Not now, not ever. He takes her hand, even though his feet dig into the ground, even as his mind screams at him to stop her. Stop them from stepping out of that door and into the car. Her hand squeezes around his own, warm and delicate, and all he could do is follow along, feeling once again so utterly and entirely safe. "It's okay, Izuku. Everything is gonna be okay." "Hey. Hey, Shouta." He knows who the voice belongs to without even looking up. His face is pressed against a thick, slightly scratchy surface. "You need to wake up." Is this really happening, Asashi?" he asks, knowing all too well how vulnerable he must sound. The cold skin beneath his own answers his question, even as his best friend utters the next words, as if cementing the notion. Yes, it is," comes the voice hero's solemn, low reply. His tone is practically dripping with sorrow and remorse. "They wouldn't let me in until I showed them my hero license." He continues, as if to ward off the dark atmosphere that had gathered around them. "It's been a week, Hisashi. He should be waking up by now." "He will," the hero says with conviction, toxic green eyes intense in their brief. "How do you know that?" Aizawa's voice breaks, despite his effort to keep himself composed. "I want to move him to long-term section today. Do you know what that means?" he almost asks, desperately. "It means they don't think he's going to be waking up anytime soon." "He's going to be waking up," the hero repeats, eyes just as hard and intent. "But what if he doesn't?" His fingers caressed the door handle, feeling a disturbing sense of déjà vu as he got into the car, a soft, familiar tune going off the moment his mother turned the engine on. Everything happening around him felt uncannily staged, down to the dust marging the car's window and the song his mother always hummed while driving. It should have felt eerie, maybe a little frightening, yet all he could feel was a distant sense of safety. Like the film of an old movie, the scenery passed by around them as they drove, The sense of anticipation he should have been feeling was absent, completely missing from his usually anxious mind. Izuku, honey. His mom spoke in a soft, warm voice, eyes trained on the road ahead. Where do you want to go? Aren't we going out for ice cream? Look around you, sweetie. The outside world seemed to shift around them, morphing and meddling, as if they were going so fast that his eyes couldn't keep up with the shifting onslaught. Looking to the car's control panel, he realized that his observations were all wrong. The car wasn't going fast. In fact, it was barely moving at all. Instead, the world around them was moving. Don't you want to go back? Her eyes were trained on something behind him, and he turned to follow her gaze. Looking at the scenery outside was dizzying at first. The motion only served to make his head spin. However, the more he looked, the clearer it became. Instead of the green and yellow shifting trees and passing forests, image began accosting his mind. His first steps, his first day at school, his 4th birthday, and his lost friendship. A mother's hug, a crash, and the world turning upside down. It was all there, right there within his reach. His first meeting with Rue, his training, and his first patrol, meeting Shinsou, saving people, running from the police and the heroes. Finding his lost friend, losing a part of himself all over again, making friends, having a family, living, really living, and dying. I didn't know. He expected to turn around and find disappointment staring back at him. However, what he saw made his heart lodge itself into his throat. Her eyes were squinting in understandment, no judgment to be found. It made his chest contract and his eyes sting with unshedded emotion. I'm just so tired, Mama, he whispered, feeling a little broken. Oh, honey, I know. Her gaze held within their emerald brightness, so much raw love in it, that it made his insides feel warm. I know, baby. You've been so brave, so very brave. He leaned into her outstretched hand, finding comfort in her touch. Her fingers trailed over his eyes and cheeks. Her touch brought another realization, one he confirmed as he looked down at his scarred hands. I'm sorry, I'm scared, hideous, broken. You've grown up so much, my beautiful boy. Her eyes shined with tears as they trickled down her face, making him want to wipe them away before they even touched her skin. I'm sorry I wasn't there to see it. The world was shifting faster now, colors and hues blending into the brightening white that seemed to feed into anything and everything in its wake. Looking at the road ahead, a tunnel was forming, as if caving in the light. Is this real? Was this all in his head? Asking this made his blood in his veins freeze in fear. The answer was something he'd been avoiding for a while now. Are you real? He wanted to ask. Her only response was to bring her hand right over his heart. Her touch made him feel an intense warmth that seemed to trickle into his very soul. Do you feel that? Do you feel me? It asked. Do I have to go back? Can't I stay here? With you? His voice was desperate, pleading. I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. I'll be right there, with you, no matter what. I'll see you soon. He found himself asking, voice softly, vulnerable. Take your time, love. There's no rush. She breathed, her eyes crinkling with her teary-eyed smile. The light around them was getting brighter, seeping into her very essence. I love you so much, Izuku. Never forget it. She whispered over the rising white noise. Her voice echoed in his head. Mom! White. So much white. Mom? I love you. The wind whispered before the world turned black. Okay, so what I think that probably was is Izuku in a coma. Because I do hear from a lot of different sources that sometimes people have whole, conscious. Like, people are conscious when they're in a coma. Sometimes they remember, sometimes they don't. And it's just like a whole thing that is, you know, unexplained. And in some beliefs, some believe that when someone's in a coma, their soul is out of their body and is in the afterworld and could come back, right? So it just depends on people's beliefs and stuff like that. So what I think that was either his unconscious telling him like, hey, you know, you're good, or what I like to believe, my personal theory that I like to headcanon, as of right now, as of today, which is that was Izuku's mom visiting him in obviously his comatose dream and telling him like, hey, I love you, you know, and you will always, I would always be there for you, like I love you, and you know, I'm so proud of you, and I'm sorry that I wasn't there for adentro.
Sorry.
Oh, it's you. You could say sorry, but you know what? You know what you have to do. You know what you have to do.
Is this the series?
No, this isn't the series. Here, your 2 videos beforehand.
What about them?
Oh wait, never mind. I was just talking emotionally about comas and Izuku's coma, where I think his mother's spirit just said, I love you to him. And I think he's gonna wake up. I think next chapter he's gonna wake up. What's the next chapter called? The next chapter is called That's Okay Too. So hopefully he does wake up, and he wakes up. It has been a week, and in the older alternate universe, and before my heart gives out, what's it called? It would have been his quote-unquote funeral and his quote-unquote, like, when they give him his awards and stuff. So hopefully he wakes up. Yay! We would love that, guys. Let's pray. Let's pray. One could pray. But yeah, I think that's all for my notes. As I said in that coma thing, I think it was truly Izuku's spirit telling him like, hey, and I think, well, Inko could see his, you know, 14, 15-year-old self. Stop messing with that. Izuku in the mirror was only able to see his 10-year-old self because he doesn't know how he looks like when he's 14, and it's kind of hard for the mind to conjure up what you look like. And this is something, like when you're dreaming and you look into a mirror, which apparently you're not supposed to do, so don't do that. I've done this before, but you're not supposed to do that. Your mind actually has a really hard time conjuring up how you yourself look like, right? Especially if you haven't looked in a mirror. It's hard for your mind to conjure that up. So it brings up all the stuff that you've seen in a mirror before and tries to conjure it up in your dream, but it still has a difficult time. So imagine like you haven't seen yourself since you're 10. Yeah, no. You're just gonna be still 10 in your mind. Your mind already has a hard time conjuring that stuff up. Like, for example, the sky. The minds have a really hard time, and especially in dreams and stuff like that, have a hard time conjuring up the sky. So I feel like that's why Izuku saw his 10-year-old self, while Inko's spirit saw his 15/14-year-old self, like his actual self. Well, he said 4 years, so he's 14. Probably 14 going into 15, if we're being honest. So that's why that. So I hope that that was Inko's spirit, and not just a coma fever dream. Coma fever dream, is that a thing? I don't know. But as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink, water. Let me start over again. Make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.